Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again on Aspiration, Inspiration with me, Jason George, where as always we aspire to inspire before we expire. And you would have read in the news recently about a certain marine biologist from Lavender Hill that have been selected to, lead international program on the sustainability of oceans. We are joined this morning by Dr. Riaan Cedras. Dr. Riaan Cedras. Riaan, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Jason, for having me today.
No, it's such an honor and such a privilege. And you are trending in the media at the moment. Can you talk to us a bit about that? What is happening at the moment? You've been selected as one of the only, if not the only person from South Africa to lead an international program on the sustainability of oceans. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah. So basically, when people say trending and all these things, like you often ask yourself, what is the hype about the whole situation? And because at the moment, you don't fully understand what it means to people. And I guess that's probably what trending means. So in terms of the UN program that I'm involved in, I was invited in January to come to Kenya. We had to where the UN basically paid for everything, and they invited me to come there to Kenya, Nairobi, and I was given a question in terms of where do I see the youth of Africa in the next 10 years in terms of ocean sciences. And so I had to give a vision for the UN where I would see Africa and a vision for Africa for the next 10 years. Yeah. And that's what the program is about. It's for the UN Decade of Ocean Sciences for the 10 years that we're trying to mobilize, especially the young generations, because I'm like, you have very successful scientists out there. And to become a successful scientist, you need to be in your 50s or late 40s. And so there is more emphasis being placed on early career ocean professionals. Because the early career professionals are more involved with the youth side of the other scientists that's coming through. Yeah. So we will be seen as bridging that gap between the bringing people through for the next 10 years. Yeah. And so the goal is, what will sustainability of the ocean look like in 2030? So that's the vision.
Okay.
It's 10 years. A lot can happen over 10 years.
Exactly.
But there have been other programs like this before, but then there's nothing to show for it, right? But this way, they realize is that because the youth wasn't fully engaged into this momentum, and that's what they want us to do, become trendy, right?
Yeah.
Become viral. And become awareness. So awareness creates trends, and trends create these kind of the message that you want to bring across.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole idea of how we can be successful in terms of sustainability.
That's fantastic, and I mean it's very exciting work as well. But now that we are on that, I mean that sounds all very established, and you're already the scientist, but you grew up in Lavender Hill, Riaan. Talk to us a bit about that. What was life like for you growing up in Lavender Hill? So share a bit about your experience growing up there.
Well, everybody knows if you grow up in a gang-infested area, there is a culture there, right? I do believe there is a culture in those communities, and it's the culture that I belong here, and this is my hood, And with that becomes like survival, and knowing what's good and what's right for you will determine your future.
Yeah.
So that is the sort of driver, I would say, that allowed me to navigate around street corners, riding my bike. Like robbing, you won't get robbed there, don't worry. But it's how you handle those situations, right? So, but then apart from that, there is not much emphasis being placed on education, and because of that, Lavender Hill, the life in Lavender Hill just seems like something that will pass you by. And the next thing you notice, you're either trapped by the system there, or you become an outsider of that system, where you can no longer identify yourself with the people within your own community, because you have now sort of stepped out of that environment. And now you sort of have what they call a bird's eye view of the area that you grew up. And so it makes you start, you basically feel uncomfortable with your upbringings, because you basically can't identify what has made you, or what has basically put you where you are today. Because you want to have a clear path to say, okay, this is what I did and this is how I came out of it, which is not as easy. It's a up and down, like a roller coaster, where you know that in order for you to sort of get the output of your schoolwork is not being seen as important in the community. And it's because of that, it's a struggle, because if you get A's and B's and you're in a school in Lavender Hill, you will be branded as the nerd, right? But if you are the bully of the school, you will seen as the hero of many children around. The cool kids, right? And you as yourself, as the nerd, will probably want to be like that cool kid, because the schoolwork here is not bringing me any good, man. I have to survive. I have to fight. And I don't fit in, because who cares about getting good marks in maths or whatever? Nobody cares about that there. But it's not that in its sense, because I think people do care, but I think they don't fully understand what can happen if I really, really, really focus on that. And it's through that then you become the hero, you know. But it's going to have to be a collective approach, in terms of, I can't go back to Zeralda Park, where the school that I've attended there, and say to the kids, this is what you need to do if you want to make it out. They want to see a group of people, right? Because remember, I attended once a meeting where somebody was saying is that gangsterism is a gang, is a community on its own, right? And the thing about gangsterism is that it has unity, right? So in order for me to go into Lavender Hill and change the way people think, I need to go in with you, myself, and other people need to go in there as I would say the gang, but as in terms of a community of a career-driven people, right? So that people can see, okay, I don't want to be a marine biologist, but I want to be a lawyer, you know? And then some say, I don't want to be a lawyer, I want to be a marine biologist. So that when you go there as a group, the children, they can then identify themselves with these people, and they start to emulate what they have seen. And somebody, so what you have is, you don't have just one way of getting to one group or one individual, but you come there as a group, and that is the dynamics of how I think it's possible to achieve mindset, a change in mind.
Yeah.
And it's only through that, because I went to so many schools and speaking about it, but it's only 2 or 3 people that came afterwards, and that's because they have an interest in marine. But what about those other kids who say, "Oh, this is not for me," you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and that's why when people in Lavender, when they see 10 different types of gangs operating in one community, it creates identity, right?
Mm.
For them, because they say, I live there by this gang,
Mm.
I live there by that gang, right?
Yeah.
But they're not gonna. So that is, unfortunately, that is the dynamics of it.
That is so
So when
interesting.
people,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean,
so that's
mm,
that's the whole system there.
yes, yes. Yeah, you need to counter that. You need to counter that with something, powerful and as influential as a gang. Because it's so difficult to penetrate and to get in there, when these kids are looking up to these people and the only thing that they see, because they're seeing a successful merchant, being a successful gang boss or gangster, and to them success is attached to material things. So we have a tough time countering that. And it is, as you say, it should be a collective effort. Now, I wanted to ask you, being from Lavender Hill, I personally wouldn't have thought, being from Mitchell's Plain, that marine biology is even a career. Did you always know that you wanted to be a marine biologist? And what decided it for you?
When I was in high school, right, I remember my favorite subject was woodwork. And that was believe it or not, that was the only subject I didn't study for. I didn't do anything for. I just walked in the class and whatever was thrown at me, it was just became passion, right? And I ended up never working in that subject, but I always got like diplomas, because when the test came, I was like on top of the class.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand that I didn't even study for the subject, but yet I get good marks,
Yeah, yeah.
And but I was blind, of course, in terms of what I thought, because when I studied, I was reading my favorite book. Right? So that was the subject that I chose, and because of that, my subject choices, I couldn't do what I wanted to do in terms of I wanted to be a car designer. Because you need,
yeah.
I think you need technical drawings and all that stuff to be car designer. But
Yeah.
the school that I attended didn't offer that at that time. And so I was stuck to what I could only choose later on in my career. And then after high school, there was like, I took a gap year. I didn't have money to go study. I ended up cutting grass. And then the following year, I ended up at UWC, where I was enrolled for a computer science degree.
Hey.
Because now I'm going to do coding, right? And I didn't like that, because you sit in a cold room because the computers can overheat. So computers need to be kept cool all the time. Doing coding, and I didn't really like it, and because it was a new environment, I didn't have any high school friends. I didn't have any friends from Lavender Hill. It's all me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Many of these kids or people that go to our university often come with 3 or 4 friends from the same high school. Coming from Lavender Hill, there's no one, right? It's just you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a lot of adaptation to the new environment. And then 3 months down at varsity, I realized this is not for me. I then changed my degree to biodiversity and conservation biology, which is plants and animals, right? Completely different again.
Yeah, computers to animals and plants.
Yeah. So, but then looking back at that career choices, I think it was, if something is not working for you at the moment, then try something else.
Yes.
If that doesn't work for you at the moment, try something else. And I mean, like, I did that at the university level. Nobody would mess with their career choice, right?
Yeah.
But I did that career choice and just to see where the waters will take me. And then after my first year, I then learned about marine biology that falls within this group. And I was like, wow, I like marine biology. Because when I used to do geography, there was a teacher at my high school who often used to ask me a lot about where do I catch fish, because used to like going fishing with my dad, especially in Zoetwater, all those places. I know all the spots where you can get fish, right? Because I grew up camping with my parents there, and you know the whole culture thing. Every year, December, you go there, you go fishing. Then Zoetwater, that's the place to be. So a lot of my, I would say, indirect experiences of ocean life came from my childhood exposure in terms of fishing, knowing why the fish is going like this and all that stuff, why they struggle to breathe once they're on land, all that kind of things. So that interest sort of was the driver in terms of getting my my degree. And then I started at the end of my BSc degree. I then pursued a marine biology degree, which is called honors. And then I went to Namibia, did some studies off there on fish. Then that formed part of my marine science degree, master in science, sorry. And then life happened, you know. So I wasn't so much focused on my career because I wanted to be part of the system, you know. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to do things because I've been studying now for 6, 7, 8 years, almost of my life, and I've got nothing to show for it, you know. So I took some part-time work in between jobs, and then registered for a PhD while I was doing part-time work. And then in 2017, I finally graduated with a PhD in marine science.
Dr. Riaan Cedras. Yes, like it. From Lavender. How does it feel? How does it feel like, I mean, going from just being, I don't know, like obviously I don't have a PhD, so I'm still Mr. Jason George. To just have that title, you know? And is there a sense of accomplishment? What does it mean to you?
You know, it's like, Jason, it's, you know, your accomplishments doesn't take away from your identity, right? But for some people, it do. They feel they have to have a certain persona and how they to carry themselves. If you're going to get me in Lavender Hill, which is tomorrow or later on today, and I will probably be standing there at the tuck shop.
Yeah.
And many people when they come to the tuck shop, they're like, why don't you give the doctor his way, you know? And then people like, why call him doctor, you know? It's like then other people who know my profile would explain to this person that this is a doctor, and then people's like, but so that does this mean you can do operations on people? So I said, no, it's not like that. It's more like you become a specialist in terms of the field that you are geared in, and my specialty is in plankton.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that next.
So you can continue. So I go on the research vessel like this one. It's the Asia Gallus 2. Yeah. So this is a vessel that goes out to the deep ocean, and then what we then do is we send down plankton nets, and what comes up in the nets in terms of plankton, there's a group there called copepods, right?
I don't know what groups are, so you're gonna have to explain to us. Yeah.
It's like it's like a cockroach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you step on a cockroach, you're gonna get right.
Yeah.
It's gonna crack. So the same organism is also found in the open ocean, but they are so small. They are the tip of a lead pencil, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that tip. That's the size of them. So it's like house fleas, right? That jumps around.
Yeah.
So that's the size of them, and because they are so small, they actually feed the fish that feeds us, right?
Mm.
So wherever there's fish in the ocean, they actually determine whether that fish would be found there or not.
Mm.
So that's why plankton is seen as the key between fisheries science.
Yeah.
And so that is so where they are found, there must be a reason why they're there. And so it's the marine biologist's job to basically tell the scientific community this is why they are there, and this is the reasons why they are there, and the fish that is associated with them is very important.
Mm.
So at the moment, I'm involved in a project where we grow, cobble yolk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so cob is found off in the ocean, but ocean farming in terms of uh, poverty alleviation and food security
Mm.
is where this project ties in. So they're trying to breed this fish, but the fish, when they have their babies just die off, right? And the babies can't survive without their natural food source.
Mm. Mm.
So they've asked me now to join this team because of my plankton experience,
Yeah.
because that is what they feed on.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're trying to grow simultaneously the what's happening in the ocean on land, and try to feed the fish that can later on be distributed around the country.
Yeah.
To sort of support food security. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Oh, that is so great. And I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you said that you could never have seen this happening, but I mean, it's such an important role that you are fulfilling in society now, just in a professional capacity, but also in a capacity where you are a source of inspiration to other people. And I mean, when I read your story, I thought, man, like I would love to have you on the platform to share a bit about your story and inspire other people that may come after you. And talking about that, the chairperson of the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network. Talk to us a bit about that, and the opportunities available for young scientists, in what you're doing. Because how do we get more young people and more young people of color involved in the sciences?
Yeah, the Western Indian Ocean is the first thing that I ask people is, do you know where it's located? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of things that we fail to grasp, especially in geography, is continents and all that stuff. So you have your Africa, and the Horn of Africa is where Somalia is. And so the Western Indian Ocean stretches from the Somalian coast all the way down to South Africa. And it involves all the islands like Zanzibar, Mauritius, Seychelles, Comore Islands, Madagascar, all of those, Kenya, Mozambique, Tanzania, and yeah, I think I've said all of them. So all of those countries there involved form part of the Western Indian Ocean. And there, a lot of emphasis is placed on community engagement, coastal engagement in terms of protecting the ocean. The message back home is not the same because of historical preferences or given to certain groups of individuals. So the representation in terms of people of color is not as great or significant as seen in other parts of Africa. Because they didn't have the same government system that we had. And so from South Africa's point of view, there is a good representation in terms of the other side of the skin spectrum. So coming back home, people of color, is that we often stop at the undergraduate level, right? So you volunteer at the Two Oceans Aquarium, you go there and you enjoy what you're doing, and you think that if this is marine biology, then that's it for me, I'm going to do something else. Right? Or you do your normal degree, up to your BSc degree, and then you're done. But then you're not going to see the benefits of marine biology because you're going to become not as skilled as you want to be. So it's going to stop for you there.
Yeah.
The only real difference you can make is when you get your PhD, because then you can determine what type of science gets done, why it gets done, and how you can bring more people on board. So the goal is for everyone to at least then to get their PhDs, right? And unfortunately, not all of us have the luxury or the time to do that. But if that is not in your capacity to do, then alternative ways need to be found how you can become engaged. I'm like, there is marine law, there is the marine social aspect of it, there is the maritime studies of it. So the ocean is so big, and there's ocean farming. There is so many things of how you can become part of the ocean, right? And the key thing to that is reading, unfortunately, right? Is you're going to have to read with understanding and interpreting what you're reading. So if you're not going to read, unfortunately, you're not going to fully grasp what is actually needs to be done. Well, social media is a good way of seeing what other people is doing. But if you want to get more info, then you're going to have to read.
No, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then last question. Someone that wants to do, and you've touched on it already, but what are your words of advice and motivation for someone that wants to follow into your footsteps and do what you have done?
Well, to follow my footsteps, don't deviate, right? Stick to the path. It's going to look, it's not glamorous, first of all. It's going to be doing things that is basically what we were not trained to do. You're going to have to make sacrifices. People is going to come and ask, you've been studying for so long, but you still stay in Lavender Hill, Are you really a doctor? Are you really going to be all these things? Are you really a lawyer? Those kind of things, because you still stay here with us. But what's wrong with having lawyers and marine biologists in Lavender Hill? What's wrong with
that? Exactly.
What's wrong with that? Because do I need to prove that I earn money to go and live in a leafy suburb? And so while you pursue your career, don't see it as at the end of my career journey, I'm going to show people, I'm going to pack my bags, I'm going to leave this place, and I'm going to show them that I've actually achieved. Because if you don't succeed in your career journey, right, then people's going to you're going to feel depressed, you're going to regret the decisions you made for not pursuing your career. So that's the wrong intention. Just do a career choice. I would say if it doesn't work out for you, then change. And then see what you can, because my path was not as straightforward as it looks. It was one foot there, one foot here, going back to campus, coming back at home, hearing who's got shot and who got mugged. And navigating, of course, is going to be a challenge if you come from those communities. If you don't, then just stick to what the degree requires of you to do, and then you'll see the benefits at the end of the road.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Riaan Cedras from Lavender Hill. I'm so inspired this morning by our chat. Thank you very much for joining me again. I just appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jason, man.
Thank you. And thank you to those who've been watching. Thank you for joining us today on Aspiration Inspiration, where, as always, we aspire to inspire before we expire.